Okay, well, I'd like to apologize to all 10 of you for not posting more. I got a little busy with the pandemic and all that and getting another job, so now I've been working more and waking up earlier. And speaking of waking up earlier, I stumbled upon this article talking about how waking up just 1 hour earlier can really cut depression risk by double digits, according to the study done by the Broad Institute. So let's just jump into it, and I'll just give a little bit of commentary along the way if you're new here. So, waking up just 1 more hour or 1 hour earlier could reduce a person's risk of major depression by 23%, suggests a sweeping new genetic study published May 26th in the journal JAMA Psychiatry. So, JAMA, if y'all are aware, they're one of the better journals out there, and especially when it came to the pandemic, they really did a lot of the early work in publishing a lot of good data. So the study of, ooh, wow, okay, 840,000 people, that is a lot, by researchers at the University of Colorado Boulder and the Broad Institute of MIT and Harvard. Actually walked by that building. Nice looking place, at least. The artwork is decent. This represents some of the strongest evidence yet that chronotype, a person's propensity to sleep at a certain time, influences depression risk. So chrono coming from the Greek, I think it's Greek for time. So chronotype would be the type of time you would go to sleep at. So it's among the first studies to quantify just how much or how little changes is required to influence mental health. So this is, if we really think about it, we really need to be caring about our mental health, but so frequently being given, or I guess being shown the data of what small steps you can do to greatly improve your risks or improve your chances of not having these risks is important. And so I think a lot of us are told we need to exercise more, we need to walk more, exercise, what have you. But what is really nice is when we can say, okay, if you do X, then you are more likely to not have depression by this percentage point. And so it's nice to see data like this, especially with a large number or a giant sample size. So, as people emerge post pandemic from working and attending school remotely, which is a trend that has led many to shift to a later sleep schedule, the findings could have important implications. So, definitely, I'm pretty much the opposite. When the pandemic ended up happening, I ended up quitting a lot of the jobs that ended up making me stay up very late in the evening. And as a result, I went to bed earlier, I woke up earlier, and now I'm pretty much waking up around 4:30 because I have just a gig that I do very early in the morning. So because of that, I'd like to think that I have more energy and that my life has been just all around a lot better since I don't have to go to bed very late. But I don't know how much of that is me just getting older and not wanting to go to bed that early, right? So yeah, this is all a little complicated, but we'll just keep on going. So, as we have known for some time that there's a relationship between sleep timing and mood, but a question we often hear from clinicians is how much earlier do we need to shift people to see a benefit? So, if we can, what's probably going to happen is we're probably going to be given a minimum amount of time, right? We're probably going to say if you do this amount of time, you can sort of balance like how late you go to sleep while still receiving most of the benefits of waking up early, right? If this is going to be happening, there's probably going to be a subset of people that say, well, we can stay up as late as possible, but as long as we wake up at this period of time, then we can still avoid a lot of the mental health issues while still remaining productive and still allowing ourselves to have that social life that we like to have late in the evenings. So we found that even 1 hour. Wait, yeah, we found that even 1 hour earlier sleep, 1 hour earlier sleep timing is associated with a significantly low risk of depression. So previous observational studies have shown that night owls are as much as twice as likely to suffer from depression as early risers, regardless of how long they sleep. Which I can really see that. Like there have been times where I went to bed late and then I slept for 8, 10, 12 hours, well, maybe 12 hours, but did not feel well rested after the fact. Ironically, after I drink, I usually wake up earlier and feel great the next day. So I don't know if there's a correlation there. Unfortunately, quitting most of my drinking. Regardless, but because mood disorders themselves can disrupt sleep patterns, researchers have had a hard time deciphering what causes what. So other studies have had small sample sizes, which, getting a large sample size in of itself is a challenge. And would you load? Sorry, I have this on manual focus, but it switches to automatically for some reason. So in 2018, I lost my train of thought. So in 2018, Vetter published a large long-term study of 32,000 nurses showing that early risers were up to 27% less likely to develop depression over the course of 4 years. But that begged the question, what does it mean to be an early riser? Right? So to get a clearer sense of whether shifting, and I should also preface this, I don't know if using nurses is actually going to be the best way to determine this, right? Because nurses themselves often, especially new nurses, can have um, very bad sleep patterns, right? So it a lot of nurses can be forced to go on the night shift, right? So perhaps people are being forced into different types of sleep schedules that their body wouldn't otherwise naturally have them be. So perhaps using nurses as a sample size might be a way to skew the data in one way or the other. However, to get a clear sense of whether shifting sleep time earlier is truly protective and how much shift is required, lead author I'm sorry for mispronouncing it, but I.S. Douglas turned to data from the DNA testing company 23andMe and the biomedical database UK Biobank. Douglas then used a method called Mendelian randomization that leverages genetic associations to help decipher cause and effect. And I'm not exactly sure what this Mendelian randomization is, but according to Wikipedia, it is a method of using measured variation in genes of known function to examine the causal effect of modifiable exposure on disease in observational studies. So let's see if Wikipedia can just give us a quick synopsis. And I don't think so. Is a method using measured variation in genes of known function to examine the causal effect of modifiable exposure on disease in observational studies. The design was first proposed in 1986 and subsequently described by these people. Yeah, I won't be able to parse this right away, but yep, we learned something new, and maybe I'll look more into that later. Anyways, our genetics are set at birth, so some of the biases that affect our kinds of epidemiological research tend not to affect genetic studies, said Douglas, who graduated in May from Harvard Medical School. So more than 340 common genetic variants, including variants in the so-called clock gene, PER2, and I'll just look it up so that we can be aware. Just so you know, Wikipedia, there's a lot of open source information about genes and proteins in the human genome. So if you want to look at those, go right ahead. There's usually at least a few papers that you can find to help educate you. So yeah, it's just a member of the period family of genes and is expressed in circadian patterns in the suprachiasmatic nucleus. I have no idea. It's just a tiny region of the brain in the hypothalamus. So in the hypothalamus, you have this little portion of it that is expressing this PER2 protein, and so this PER2 protein will interact with it interacts with other proteins to help control the circadian rhythm in some form. So I am completely ignorant of this. So if you want, you can look it up yourself. But I'll probably do some digging. Except I've been a little bit busy as of recent, so we will see what I end up doing. So, anyways, out of these 340 common gene variants, including variants in the so-called clock gene, these are known to influence a person's chronotype, and genetics collectively explains 12 to 42% of our sleep timing preference. Okay, I'm just gonna go out here and say it, 12 to 42%. That is a wide range, but granted the whole concept of sleep timing preference, I don't even know what that even how would you even quantify that? Because there are times when I want to go to bed early and times when I don't want to go to bed early. So I would have to do some digging to see how they exactly characterize this. Regardless, the researchers assessed de-identified genetic data on these variants from up to 850,000 individuals, including data from the 85,000 who had worn wearable sleep trackers. For 7 days, and 250,000 who had filed out sleep preference questionnaires. This gave them a more granular picture. Granular meaning, if you have a grainy picture, like you get a bunch of small little pixels, so it gives them more granularity. It gives them more data to look at. Excuse me. Um, this gave them a more granular picture down to the hour of how variants in genes influence when we sleep and wake up. Okay, so that is remarkable, and I accidentally stopped it, so let me restart the recording. Booyah! So in the largest of these samples, about a third of the surveyed subjects self-identified as morning larks. I've never heard that before, but okay. 9% were night owls, and the rest were in the middle. So overall, the average sleep midpoint was 3 a.m., meaning that they went to bed at 11 p.m. and got up at 6 a.m. That's average? What? Okay, interesting. Sorry, I just was thinking about that. Like the average person goes to bed at 11, wakes up at 6 a.m. Sure, I didn't know that. I thought it was a little bit later in this country. So with this information in hand, the researchers turned to you know what? Now that I think about this, this is sampling a lot from people who like have trackable uh, who wear you know sleep monitoring equipment. I guess I don't know how to explain it very well, but people who wear these type of equipment might be the type of person who tends to go to bed a little bit earlier. So I'm not quite sure. But we could keep on going. Sorry, I'm rambling. So with this information in hand, the researchers turned to a different sample, which included genetic information along with anonymized medical and prescription records and surveys about diagnoses of major depressive disorders. So using novel statistical techniques, they asked, do those with genetic variants which predispose them to be early risers also have lower risks of depression? And the answer is yes. So each 1 hour earlier sleep midpoint, and so remember these sleep midpoints are, determined through the genetics, right? So on average, if you have the genetics that make you want to go to bed earlier, um, then by an hour, then that would end up being the same variance that would cause you to have a 23% lower risk of major depressive orders on average on a population scale. So this suggests that if someone who normally goes to bed at 1 a.m. goes to bed at midnight instead and sleeps the same duration, they could cut their risk by 23%. If they go to bed at 11 p.m., they could cut it by about 40%. Oh, okay. So I need to read the actual paper. I've only been reading this article, but what it's sounding like is you can have your chronotype that defines when you would want to go to sleep, but it appears as though you have that chronotype, and if you actually uh, defy your chronotype and go to sleep a little bit earlier and wake up a little bit earlier, you are cutting your depression risk significantly. So it's not just your genes, it appears to be your deliberate actions to change what your genes would normally want you to do. At least that's how I'm interpreting it. I would have to read the actual paper to get a little bit clearer picture. So it is unclear from the study whether those who are already early risers could benefit from getting up earlier, but those in the intermediate range or evening range, shifting to an earlier bedtime would likely be helpful. So what could explain this effect? So some researchers suggest that getting greater light exposure during the day, which early risers tend to get, results in a cascade of hormonal impacts that can influence mood. So, sunlight, you might have heard that blue light even um, can actually screw up your circadian rhythm if you are looking at your phone screen for too long. For instance, and that's why I always have the blue screen filter on my phone because I like watching TikToks late at night. Go figure. But by doing this, by waking up earlier, you end up your body sees the bright light, your eyes see the bright light, your body gets exposed to the radiation, and all of that can play a role in basically pumping out hormones that tells your body what it needs to do for that particular day. So, or not that particular day, but for the day, right? And I mean, we've gone through so many generations of going to bed at sundown, waking up at sunrise, and so, or maybe even a little bit before sunrise. And by doing that, it would be evolutionarily advantageous to produce chemicals that basically click our bodies into that rhythm. So by clicking our schedules into that rhythm, it becomes a positive feedback loop. So basically, we become more successful if we all start aligning our schedules or aligning our hormonal schedules to a particular rhythm. And then as a result, the healthier people who line up to that cycle end up reproducing better. And it becomes a positive feedback loop in which you almost select out people or select out creatures that are unable to sync up with the rhythm. Sorry, that was a. Please tell me if that didn't make sense. But basically, yeah, just tell me if that didn't make sense, and I'll try to explain further in the comments if any of the 20 of my subscribers are interested in that. So others note that having a biological clock or circadian rhythm that trends differently than most people can itself be depressing, and that's very much true. Um, yeah, I think there might have been some studies about how if someone's circadian rhythm isn't exactly the 24 hours, I don't know if it's exactly 24 hours normally, but if someone's is off by a little bit too much, that can result in a lot of health issues because they're always feeling tired. So yeah, anyways, but I should also counter that with it seems as though when people are completely removed from sunshine, so let's say if they're living in in a cave system, right, and they're doing a scientific study, I believe if I'm remembering correctly, their circadian rhythms get completely screwed up and they actually don't even want to go to bed or wake up at a 24-hour time cycle. It tends to actually extend out significantly, but um, yeah, I don't remember that at all, so I'd have to look back into it. So we live in a society. We live in a society. Sorry, I can't read that line without laughing. We live in a society, right? But it is designed for morning people, and even evening people often feel as if they are in a constant state of misalignment with that societal clock, says Douglas. Now, I'm gonna push back a little bit out on this. I feel like, especially for people younger than my age, it's almost as if society is structured around people younger than me to go out late and to party late and then wake up late, or if they party late, wake up early simultaneously. But yeah, I feel like it's definitely generational dependent, and it's probably also like what city you're in dependent, right? So if you're in a city that has a boisterous, lively nightlife, that's probably going to be there's probably going to be a societal shift in that city to accommodate for people who go to bed a little bit later. So I wouldn't I would not be able to give you any concrete numbers. That's just sort of like the thoughts that are coming out of my head right now. Anyways, he stresses that a large, randomized clinical trial is necessary to determine definitively whether going to bed early can reduce depression, but the study definitely shifts the weight of evidence towards supporting a causal effect of sleep timing on depression. So, for those wanting to shift themselves to an earlier sleep schedule, Vetter offers this advice: keep your days bright and your nights dark, she says. Have your morning coffee on the porch, walk or ride your bike to work if you can, and dim those electronics in the evening. Well, yeah, that's nice and idyllic, I should say. So, I guess to end it, I'll just give a little update on my life because I really have not been coming here. So basically, just paid off the house, so super happy about that. Um, got a job doing something at least in my general field, so really happy about that. So it's doing biosensor work, trying to find different ways of chemically functionalizing electrodes in order to do detection. So not exactly my field, although I can definitely see a lot of the applications of my research in this particular platform, and hopefully I can at least explore that route a little bit further to expand the knowledge, right? Expand the knowledge of biosensors and expand the knowledge of now how we can use functionalization to make those work a little bit better. So yeah, there's that took place. I still am doing a lot of that contract work, not nearly as much, but some of it. And what else has been keeping me busy? Oh yeah, buying another house soon. So hopefully I can get that to uh, work out properly. But yeah, things have been going well, and I would say that we are in the end game of the pandemic, and I'm so happy that we were able to really push out the vaccine as quickly as we did because holy hell, like that was not a good time. So yeah, with all that said, thanks for coming back, and hopefully I will see you guys within the week because I feel like there's a lot of stuff that I've been wanting to do, wanting to talk about, wanting to um, research on the side, but just life got busy and the pandemic got to me. So yeah, I think we're good now. So y'all have a good one, and hopefully I will see you, yeah, within the week.